Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our May 16th, 2024 Blueprint Budget Workshop. I'm calling the meeting to order. I understand some commissioners are on the way, but we're going to get started because we do have a regular meeting at 3 o'clock. I just want to remind everyone, public, staff, that it's my duty as chair to just make sure that we enforce the rules of debate and decorum. So I expect all of us to treat each other courteously. And we're going to try to focus on the issues that will be before us. Consistent with Robert's Rules of Order, I ask that each one of us address remarks to the chair and let's not individualize each other. So on the agenda for this budget workshop is our fiscal year 2025 proposed operating budget and our 5-year capital improvement program for our recommendation and for our consideration. So now I'll ask Mr. White, if you have a presentation for the budget.
Yes, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Board of Directors. We do have a brief presentation for this item, the budget workshop. I think you're going to be very excited. We have a balanced budget that continues the forward momentum of what we've seen from the previous budget, continues on the great projects that have been underway for a while, especially continuing from the fiscal year 24 budget. And this budget gets projects built. So I think you'll see throughout the presentation just kind of what type of significant forward momentum this budget will have. I'll provide a few comments to provide a general overview on the process, and then I'll hand it over to Autumn to talk about the blueprint infrastructure side of the budget, and then Keith will address the OEV side of the budget. I'll provide some summary comments, and then there'll be ample time for you as a body to deliberate and provide us direction. Slides just changed a moment ago. Move to the next slide, please. Okay. As I mentioned, the proposed fiscal year 25 budget continues the forward momentum that we've seen from the 2024 budget and everything kind of culminating up to that point. Autumn and Keith will address this in a little bit more detail in a few moments, but I can't understate the significance of the momentum we've had. We've seen through what we've done and the policy direction that we've received from the IA board, the opening of award-winning parks and projects that are enhancing the quality of life. We've seen groundbreaking for key regional infrastructure. We've been recognized nationally for the achievements we've had in economic development. And this has all really culminated in the most recent independent rankings that have resulted in us being recognized as having the strongest economy in the United States. So the momentum that's underway, the momentum that's continuing with this budget really keeps this energy going. A little bit about the process. As we do every year, we start early in the year. We've collaborated very closely with the city and county budget offices. This allows for consistency in the budgetary formatting. So if you look at your agenda materials, it should look consistent and familiar to you. It ensures consistency in the processes and the revenue estimates, as Autumn will get into in a few moments. Our revenue projections are consistent with what the city and the county will be using. This budget also incorporates 9 years of IA board direction, including the project prioritization that we have. It includes implementation of blueprint projects, as well as the continued implementation of the OEV strategic plan. Budget recommendation A would have us bring the proposed budget back to the 2 public hearings, the first one being with the Citizens Advisory Committee on August 22nd, and then the final public hearing to adopt the budget to review with the IA board on September 5th. At this point, I'll hand it over to Autumn to address the blueprint infrastructure side of the budget.
Thank you, Artie. And I noticed that this screen's not working, so we're getting some copies of the presentation made. I know it's probably hard for you guys over on that side to see. So we'll get those out to you as soon as possible. So I'm excited to present the blueprint budget for you today, and I wanted to start the presentation by making the announcement that blueprint infrastructure is taking the national stage again. Your focus on innovation and maximizing community benefits in each project has been recognized by the American Public Works Association. The Capitol Circle Southwest Greenways project, which includes the new nature park, has been awarded the Public Works Project of the Year in the structures less than $5 million category. We are going to showcase Tallahassee-Leon County on the national stage and share all of the great things that you have been doing here. It's really rewarding to see this type of award come into Blueprint. And in fiscal year 24, your infrastructure program has actually already received 8 different local, state, and now national awards. You continue to be recognized for your leadership in environmental stewardship, innovation, community involvement, and preservation. In fact, tonight, the Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency will be accepting 2 more awards. The Organizational Achievement Award for all of the great work you have done to preserve and share our historical and cultural resources. And we're picking up another award in the archaeology category for the Carr Cemetery analysis that was completed as part of the Bannerman project. And the innovative and impactful projects being implemented in fiscal year 25 will carry that award-winning momentum forward. The proposed budget reflects a ton of construction activity, and we anticipate having 15 projects in construction in fiscal year 25. And the proposed budget aligns with all of the IA board priorities and schedules to date. All of the work that you've done over the last 9 years, you've done a ton of heavy lifting to get us to this construction moment. And that includes determination of annual allocations for bike, ped, transit, water quality, and operating costs for parks built by Blueprint, prioritizations to align with opportunities from the Florida Department of Transportation and the Federal Department of Transportation for funding large transportation projects, advanced funding and bonding to bring those community benefits more quickly, and each year you approve your capital improvement plan. And this budget this year is a continuation of that. We have no significant changes, and the budget proposed before you continues the implementation of 15 infrastructure projects that, again, are anticipated to be in construction next year. The FY25 capital budget allocates just over $21 million to the projects, including almost $10 million for bike, ped, transit, water quality, and operating costs for parks. It reconciles funding for 5 grants for the Capitol Cascades Trail Segment 3 and North Monroe Gateway projects, and provides funding for Airport Gateway, Monroe Adams, and Midtown placemaking projects, all to support those construction activities in fiscal year 25. Our 5-year CIP provides over $144 million to the projects, which in turn supports the local economy by providing jobs and generating sales tax revenues. Of this, a conservative estimate of $20 million would go towards our minority and our women-owned firms. And due to the IA board's focus on bringing infrastructure projects to fruition, by 2025, 25 of the 27 Blueprint 2020 projects will be in progress or completed. This proposed budget keeps this progress moving forward. And the proposed CIP continues the funding commitments to key Southside projects like Airport Gateway, Fairgrounds, and Monroe Adams placemaking. In fact, previous and planned funds culminate in over $400 million invested in 14 projects within our Southside Action Plan area. This fiscal year, we'll have 13 projects in construction, so that's fiscal year 24. By next fiscal year, several of those will wrap up, but more will take their place, bringing us to those 15. 7 projects are currently in construction today. In this summer and fall, you can expect a very busy season of groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings. To keep this progress moving forward, Budget Recommendation B seeks IA board authorization for construction of 6 projects. And I'll walk through those 6. Capital Cascades Trail Segment 4 is currently in design, and we expect to bring this project to construction early next year. Some highlights include greenway connections, new park space, and reduced flooding in the Callan and Liberty Park neighborhoods. The Bannerman Road project will go into construction next year, expanding the two-lane road from Bannerman Crossing all the way to Preservation, with multimodal connectivity all the way to Meridian Road. The first phase to go to construction for the Airport Gateway project is the segment of Spring Hill Road near Capitol Circle, where we're securing a leveraging opportunity with the Florida Department of Transportation's Capitol Circle Southwest project. We're able to secure their 2023 construction rates through this opportunity. The next segment to go to construction will be Segment C, the new road through Innovation Park, which is anticipated to break ground in late 2025. The Airport Gateway is a transformational project for the South Side. This project implements critical safety improvements, new multimodal connectivity, and provides new access and visibility to Innovation Park. IA Board construction authorization for the North Monroe Gateway will provide for enhanced medians between John Knox and Allen Road, consistent with those that were recently implemented just south of I-10. Market District placemaking construction authorization will provide for those placemaking elements that are purely focused on pedestrian safety and connectivity, opening up better access and visibility for the businesses in the Market District. And we also eagerly anticipate the groundbreaking for the new park later this summer. The East Ditch improvements are anticipated to begin construction in '25. This will be another important improvement in the placemaking district following the new park and the South Side Transit Center, which are both going into construction. Lastly, regarding the proposed fiscal year '25 operating budget, we propose to maintain the same positions and from last year and budget, accepting our cost of living adjustments, which would be reflective of whatever the city and the county adopt later this year. And just in summary, the proposed budget is a continuation of where we were last year with the adopted '24 budget with no significant changes, and provides the funding to complete the continued implementation of these impactful and innovative infrastructure projects. However, I do want to just make one announcement before I turn it over to Director Bowers. We are going to hold our groundbreaking for the Orange Meridian Park on June 19th, Wednesday, June 19th, and we look forward to celebrating this important milestone with you that morning.
Thank you, Autumn. Directors, thanks to your vision and guidance, 2024 was a banner year for the Office of Economic Vitality. You witnessed the ribbon cutting and launching of our community's largest economic development project in Amazon. Groundbreaking assets such as the North Florida Innovation Lab have come online to serve the needs of our burgeoning hard science entrepreneurs. And world-renowned companies such as Danfoss have doubled down on their investment in our community by expanding their operations. Implementing your strategic plan's holistic approach to economic development has led to accolades and recognition and solidified your commitment to fostering a resilient and diverse economy while focusing on economic inclusion. OEV received the 2024 Regional Deal of the Year Award from the Florida Economic Development Council for the Amazon Robotics Fulfillment Project Center. While Amazon's capital investment of over $250 million and the $451 million in total economic impact is substantial, the deliberate effort by Amazon and OEV to host job fairs in areas with historically high unemployment rates is equally, if not more, significant. Of the 2,000 jobs created by Amazon, more than 42% of the associates hired reside in zip codes where unemployment rates exceed the community's aggregated average. In addition to statewide recognition in 2024, the Tallahassee MSA economy received national recognition for its economic strength and was ranked among the best performing economies in the nation by Area Development Magazine. The Tallahassee MSA is ranked as the strongest economy compared to 383 other MSAs in the nation. This ranking is based on two subcategories: core economic indicators and job growth indicators. In addition to this distinction, the Tallahassee MSA is ranked number 2 in the category of mid-sized metro locations compared to other MSAs with populations between 160,000 and 600,000 residents. Our MSA ranked number 4 in the South Atlantic region metro, consisting of MSAs in Florida, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And Tallahassee ranked number 9 in the overall category. The overall category rankings are based on performance scores across all 24 economic and workforce indicators. Armed with these data-driven accolades, which have positioned Tallahassee MSA as the strongest economy in the United States, and the other high rankings received, OEV will develop and implement an outbound marketing campaign designed to attract capital investment and talent to Tallahassee-Leon County. Our team has already contacted Florida Trend, 850 Magazine, and our Tallahassee International Airport partners to explore advertising opportunities. The proposed fiscal year 2025-2029 capital improvement program fully funds prior commitments and allocations to ongoing economic development projects such as Amazon, Danfoss expansion, and the Tallahassee International Airport improvements. The proposed CIP also allocates funding to advance OEV's work in creating a magnetics industry cluster through the Magnetic Task Force. We will host the 2025 Worldwide Motors and Magnetics Conference in Tallahassee, which will bring over 300 participants to our community to discuss the bleeding edge of magnetics, fusion energy, and electronic vehicles. The CIP also allocates resources for OEV to engage with TMH and FSU as they move forward to establish FSU Health, which will expand our community's healthcare ecosystem exponentially. The proposed 2025 operating budget continues the IA's prior direction for OEV business development and MWSBE units. No new positions have been added to the department, and a cost of living adjustment has been incorporated consistent with the city and the county. The budget proposes 2 project enhancements to the MWSBE program in the areas of compliance software and events. As Autumn stated earlier, we are at an exciting juncture, moving past the planning and design phase of the projects in the pipeline to the construction phase. MWSBE compliance will fund software program renewals utilized by MWSBE, Blueprint, the City of Tallahassee, and Leon County to comply with joint supplier diversity policies. This project will also facilitate the training of multi-agency staff on using the software and federal reporting requirements. MWSBE Events Project will assist in the funding of the Big Bend Minority Enterprise Development Week, a popular event that brings businesses and entrepreneurs together for networking, professional development, and procurement opportunities. This year will mark the community's 32nd annual observation of MedWeek. Thank you once again, directors, for your unwavering vision and guidance. The achievements of 2024 underscore the transformative impact of your strategic direction. As we look ahead, the robust economic foundations laid this year and previous years position us to attract even more investment and talent to Tallahassee-Leon County. With continued dedication to our strategic plan and commitment to fostering inclusive growth, we are poised to further elevate our community's economic vitality. And with that, I will pass it over to Artie White.
Thank you, Autumn. Thank you, Keith. Just to summarize, we're bringing you a balanced budget. We're bringing you a balanced budget that continues the significant forward momentum that you've seen and we've highlighted in the presentation. One that has been coordinated very closely with both the city and county budget office staff, and then incorporates 9 years of IA board direction. Based on the direction today, we will have the first public hearing on August 22nd with the Systems Advisory Committee, and the budget adoption would be, again, the second and final public hearing on September 5th with the IA board. That presented the proposed fiscal year 25 budget. The recommended action tonight also includes Budget Recommendation C, which is a result of the annual comprehensive financial report. This would allocate some budget surplus resulting through that process of approximately $750,000 to the Midtown Placemaking Project and approximately $800,000 to the Future Opportunity Leveraging Fund. And so that is included in the budget recommendations. In summary, you have three recommendations that are included in option one. Option one is the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget. Recommendation B is the construction authorization for the projects that Autumn mentioned. And budget recommendation C is the allocation of those funds resulting from the comprehensive annual financial report. And tonight, or this afternoon, our recommended option is option one, which is to accept the Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency proposed fiscal year 2025 operating budget and fiscal year 25 through 29 capital improvements program, and direct staff to include the enumerated budget recommendations in the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget.
Thank you, Mr. White, and I certainly want to thank Ms. Coulter and Mr. Bowers for their robust presentations as well, and just congratulations for all the hard work that you all have done, are doing, and also for all the accolades that we have received, local, state, and now national. So we're on the map. But I'd like to, of course, at this point, open it up for commissioners, if you will. Mayor Daley, good to see you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly appreciate it. First of all, let me start with the economic development news. And the city played a significant role. The county plays a significant role. Blueprint played a significant role, along with our public and private partners throughout the MSA. And I want to just start by saying thank you for the hard work and dedication of our team. Once again, nationally recognized. And you do a great job day in and day out, and I certainly do appreciate it. Madam Chair, this is a solid budget that's being proposed. It is a balanced budget. Autumn, do I understand correctly that 25 of the 27 projects will be under construction next year, which I believe in the history of this program for 24 years, that's the most that will be under construction in 1 year?
Yes, 25 of the 27 will be underway, in progress, and yeah, this infrastructure program has never seen that type of construction activity and project activity. This is monumental and unprecedented.
We have a very bright future ahead of us. Madam Chair, I'd like to make the motion for staff recommendation for this particular budget item at the workshop.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a second? Thank you. Second by Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as we discussed, as I talked to you and asked you about in the briefing, this budget is materials are significantly shorter, significantly higher summarized level, and so that leads me to a lot more questions because it's harder to get to the details. Same details we had in prior budgets. So, for example, the total project costs are not anywhere listed in this budget document, so I went back to last year's workshop where we had those project costs, and I wanted to know, why are we no longer updating our estimates of project costs? Did we not see any expected changes, and have we ever done this before?
Mr. White, or?
I'll defer to Autumn.
Okay, Autumn.
Thanks. As reflected in the budget materials, we're seeing really two things. One is that after years of significant growth in our construction cost estimates, we're actually starting to see those stabilize around the state and in this area. Some of those bid items are starting to stabilize. So what we're also reflecting is a strategy to get the lowest possible bid on our construction projects. We work side by side and strategize with the Florida Department of Transportation as our work plans have a lot of similarities. We're constantly in contact with them on their construction cost estimates and where their bid prices are coming in at. What they're seeing is that if they hold their rates the same, then they're getting bid lowest bid at the rate that they publish as their construction cost estimate. So there's a strategy in holding our construction costs to the 2024 estimates to get the lowest bids possible. And we also don't know what the true cost of these projects will be until they are actually put out onto the bid.
Thank you. And so we'll have 25 projects active next year. Those will have been bid and be active. Should we expect updated costs on those, since those would be active and have bids out and are completed?
We'll provide, when we get our bids and have those actual contracts written, then we'd be happy to, of course, provide that information.
Okay. And let's see here. Is there any reason that we didn't get an update on the long-term plan? So in prior years, we see the 5-year plan, and then in an attachment, we see the long-term plan that shows total projections out there. And I understand the basis for not updating costs, but expenses have been done, funding may be changed. Is there any reason we don't have that, or is that something that's not been created even in the organization this year?
Yeah, the long-term plan is used, in the past has been used as a tool in our prioritization methods. Your CI, the capital improvement program that was adopted last year didn't include that long-term plan. Right now, we're at a state where we've got 25 of the 27 Blueprint 2020 projects moving forward, and of course, all the Blueprint 2000 projects are underway or completed. So at this point, the long-term plan doesn't really provide us, isn't a useful tool in our budgeting.
Okay, and so we've got a continuation budget where project budgets don't change. Is that correct?
Did you understand the question?
Project cost estimates don't change.
Cost estimates, okay. So there are projects where the budget will change if we approve as recommended.
The budget is approved each year. So you have, last year you had your fiscal year 24 budget, and it allocates just for that 1 year. So the budget changes every year because it's based on that current fiscal year's new allocation to that project. So the project budget for any of our projects, if it receives an allocation in 25, would then subsequently change.
Sure, and I apologize for taking the time on the detail. This just isn't in the materials. So did any project budgets change from last year? From last year's approved budget to the presented budget? Not the cost, but the budget.
Yeah, let's see, we have several projects that are receiving allocations this year. Capital Cascades Trail Segment 3 and North Monroe, those are both receiving reconciling grant funds that came in. So those project budgets have been increased by those grant funds. We have funding going to the Airport Gateway, Midtown, and Monroe Adams placemaking projects. And so now those project budgets have now subsequently increased, or are proposed to increase.
Gotcha. If we approved as is, what would be the Airport Gateway total projected budgeted cost for the project?
The Airport Gateway project, we won't know the total cost of the Airport Gateway project until it's actually bid and awarded for construction. And Airport Gateway is one of those projects that has a lot of different phasing, right? We want to make sure that we have a clear and continuous route to the airport and from downtown at all times. So that project will take many years to implement. In fact, the implementation of that project will extend beyond our 5 years.
What was the fiscal year 24 board approved Airport Gateway total budget?
The fiscal year 24 project budget that was set in for fiscal year was $82 million.
82? Mm-hmm. And my concern is that this recommendation would change that to 117. I just want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly and everyone is aware that if we approve this, what's being called a continuation budget, we change the approved budget for the project that we made as a board last year to 117, unless I'm mistaken.
You're correct, Commissioner. As we noted in the agenda materials, the proposed budget reconciles the budget and the project scope that's been approved by IE Board.
Okay. Those are my questions, and I can't support this budget as is because I'm suspect, I'm not suspect, I'm skeptical of a year where we had drawn out arguments and ultimately a decision about a total project budget. And then this year, all of the materials that would lay out project budget total are removed, and all of the materials for our long-term funding is removed for the first time I'm aware of. And even though we're only approving a 5-year plan, we need to know what our 5-year plan does to our full plan. It just doesn't make sense to me. And sometimes that happens just because I'm missing it, but that doesn't feel like it this time. And then it's disappointing that it took me this long to get the direct answer to how much is the airport gateway budget changing if we vote. So I can't support this as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Keefe. Commissioner,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Thank you for the presentation. For our capital improvement programs, I mean, the fact that we've got 25 projects out of 27, as the mayor said, breaking ground or in process by the end of 2025 is incredible. And for OEV to have the strongest economy in the nation, ranked #1, is also incredible. I mean, I just want to thank our Blueprint staff, OEV, infrastructure. I want to thank everybody here at the table for everything that we've done collectively to make that work. Those are huge successes that we shouldn't take for granted. I wanted to bring up North Monroe. I want to let everyone know that yesterday, the Safe Streets for All grant application for North Monroe was submitted by the CRTPA to the U.S. Department of Transportation. If the application is approved, we'll receive $17 million in federal funds for safety improvements to the North Monroe corridor. This application required a 20% match. In Blueprint, by virtue of this agenda item, we'll be planning to provide that matching amount, $4.2 million, from the existing Blueprint budget for the North Monroe Gateway. This is really great news, and I want to thank the CRTPA, RSNH, the consultants that worked on it, and our Blueprint staff for working together to complete the application yesterday. Kudos. Thank you. We've also had a tremendous amount of support from the public, collecting more than 1,400 petitions signed by citizens in support of using Blueprint funds as part of this grant. In February, we compiled a packet for all of you, and this packet contains comments from some of those citizens, as well as many letters of support from businesses. I want to thank them for taking the time to lend their voices to this project, and I didn't want to not pass this out. We had it ready in February. I want to make sure that you all could see some of the support that we got from throughout the community for the North Monroe Gateway project and using the Blueprint match for this grant application. So thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Blueprint staff. I just want to make sure you had that supporting the motion on the table. Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you, Commissioner Minor. Commissioner Cobain.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. First, want to thank staff for presenting this budget. I know you guys put a lot of time into it. Also want to just thank all my commissioners. I know that it's been a long week, and I appreciate everyone divulging in a good budget conversation. I would support this budget with the airport gateway bifurcated on this. I believe where we left off last, we didn't get to a board consensus on the airport gateway. I know we lost quorum and it was kind of lingering out there. I do want to point out two things. Madam Chair, may I address staff?
Please.
Director Calder, you just said that we won't know the total cost of the airport gateway until it's bid and awarded by a contractor. Directors, that's the same thing I said in September and got kind of an argument with staff on the record. And so I don't think that we should be voting on a roughly $40 million budget increase without having the full design of the project laid out in front of us with construction materials that's bid out in a contractor. I don't think it's fiscally responsible. I think what we're doing, we're really setting the bar high, and we're telling contractors, hey, this is our budget, so we put it out to bid. We're telling them where we want to be, and then they come out and they bid at that number, and we end up wasting taxpayer dollars. Additionally, Director Calder, you said that we work closely with FDOT on this project. Is there a way where in future agenda items that we could get like documentation of FDOT's opinion on these projects?
I just want to clarify, we haven't, with the exception of the Orange Avenue piece of the airport gateway, we haven't worked with FDOT closely on that project. We just coordinate closely with DOT. We have quarterly meetings with DOT. We talk about their projects that are going on in Leon, Tallahassee, Leon County. We talk about our projects that impact state roads. But we haven't had a specific meeting with DOT where we both talk specifically about the airport gateway. I'm sorry if that came off.
Okay,
That
thank
was
you.
not the way I meant it.
Director, so I'm not going to support it where it is right now. I have no problem with anything in the budget. I would prefer to have the airport gateway bifurcated. Staff, thank you again for the effort in putting this together.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Caban. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, it's hard hearing in here. I don't know if our mics are turned up too high. Got a couple of questions that I want to ask. Among those, we get this surplus that's listed on page 10, the surplus, and then staff has recommended that we're going to have about $750,000, which is recommended to be allocated to the CCQ project, Midtown placemaking project, and that's the surplus from 2024. And then there's, you also suggested that we split about 1.5 million with 800,000 surplus. You're making a recommendation for another project. So we got surpluses mentioned from 23 and 24. How come this board doesn't get the opportunity to select what surplus money go to? And what are the options besides the ones that you've mentioned with each of the categories? There's an 800,000 surplus, I believe, with 24. There's a 749,000 surplus with 23. Why aren't we making that choice as opposed to you?
First, Commissioner, that this is just a recommendation to the board, but the reason for the recommendation can be addressed by Autumn, and we have our financial officer, Trace, here as well.
Yeah, from the blueprint side or the infrastructure side, the recommendation for the Midtown project is because that's next in line for full funding based on your approved prioritization. So the projects that were prioritized above that have been fully funded, and so now it's just putting it in. We're just going down the list of the projects that you've prioritized and putting the money in.
So what makes a surplus a surplus? How do you all come to that? What triggers a surplus?
Whenever there is an excess of revenue over what we budgeted or less money spent than what we budgeted, we'll end up with a surplus. So it's a combination of more revenue and less expense.
We've got 9 million, 999 up to 48 million for the next 5 years. So anything that arises above 9 million in revenue is surplus. Is that right?
I'm not understanding where the 9 million.
As I look at the 5-year projection, you've broken it out for 9.2 million expected revenue streams. So if in the year of 26 we get 9,400,000, there would be 200,000 that you would designate as surplus. Most of the times I come in this room, we don't have enough money, but when I read through this, you're talking about surpluses, and I'm needing to keep things simple and compartmentalized. So when you say surplus, what should I understand you're saying?
If you were to receive more revenue than what you budgeted, you would have a surplus in revenue. And then if you were to spend less money than you budgeted, you'd have a surplus in expense.
Okay, great. So there is no policy standard, it's just that staff assumes that the surplus goes to what you think is the next project in line. Is that what you're saying, Autumn?
Madam Chair, for clarification, it would go to the next project as prioritized by the
Based on
design
what?
board.
It will go there based on what? Is there a policy?
Is the priority,
Thank you very much. My next question, Madam Chair, if you allow me, I think that we should, I wanted to ask the debt service that's coming out of OEV at 2.4 million. What exactly are the debts that OEV would have as a debt service, separate, segregated from the other services that are enumerated?
And before you answer that, Commissioner Proctor, I understand we are having some acoustics issues.
Yeah.
I understand the mic is maxed out, so we're being asked to speak directly into your mic. So if you speak directly in the mic. Thank you. You want to answer?
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Director Proctor, the debt service that is outlined in OEV's budget is pertaining to the debt service on the $10 million that we borrowed for the FAMU Bragg Stadium improvements.
Okay, thank you. When I see
I'm
that.
sorry, and also the FSU stadium improvements.
Very good. I saw that, and then I saw another column for debt services, and I was unclear why your office would have its own special debt services, and I wanted to know specifically what that was. Okay, thank you. And then finally, Madam Chair and Commissioners, Directors, I want to make clear that I do have unreadiness on our budget today. That unreadiness is, I believe that we should defer the airport gateway to 26 or 27. I still am unclear in terms of stakeholders' position, Florida State's position. I note that under donations we have received, you have received the $3 million from Florida State. Is that accurate? The $3 million that you show as
No,
donations?
sir, we have not received that. That, based on the letter of intent that we have executed with Florida State University, that money is to be received at the start of construction.
Okay, that's not real money. So that even undergirds, it makes even a stronger case as to why we got $3 million from Florida State on commitments which they made to the neighborhood. You indicated, Ms. Calder, that we're unclear. There's not a number finite today, and we won't know that until you put that on the market for bid, which means that potentially the $3 million number, which it would have covered when these commitments were made, it may expand as well, the FSU amount. So the $3 million is much too low, proportion to the growth from 82 million to the 124 million that our board has asked this staff to hold at 82 million. And no matter what we're saying, you continue to not hear us. The $82 million is what we've asked. I've looked at this, I have a page, but up at the next meeting, but it's an outline of the airport gateway. I don't know if you can get it on the screen. I don't have a page number. Well, it does. Page 22, so I guess it's page 21. And I still don't know how airport gateway, what makes this a gateway, and I'm still unable to reconcile, looking at the map, what makes this a direct run toward, or more direct run to our airport. I believe, looking at this map, it's longer route, it's curvaceous, it walks through and destroys a neighborhood. It goes right next to an environmental feature called the Munson Slough. It comes back around. I'm just, in my own mind, I'm unable to recognize this as being a gateway. The Spring Hill Road project, Commissioners, to me, it's called Airport Gateway Spring Hill, page 11. And I mean, is Spring Hill the gateway, or is this new word gateway? And why are you playing with words to call Airport Gateway dash Spring Hill? That's very confusing. And I know that we're supposed to get a Humpty Dump millions of dollars for a 4-lane bridge there on Spring Hill. And we're getting that millions of dollars worth of a bridge at 4 lanes for what remains a 2-lane road. And I'm still trying to reconcile, for safety's sake, how do you get to a 4-lane bridge for about 60 feet on a 2-lane road? All of these questions are in my mind. I've voiced them before. I can't reconcile them, but if for the good of the order, the body of this commission is comfortable there, I merely state my own discomforts. And I believe that what we ought to do today, commissioners, is to take the airport out. It's confusing. It has no price tag. And when our staff says that we don't have a price, and we had a price at $82 million, and it escalated to $124 million, and today our staff can't tell us that that is the stopping point, it's a finite number, you may trust and believe that it would likely exceed $150 million. We just don't know. And I don't want to budget like that and find that this project is going to usurp monies designated for other projects, but this right here is going to be the great cancer that may well sink the rest of our projects, in particular if we make binding commitments and contracts to complete this road, and today it is just not ready to travel. It's not a first team project, and its technical features are not ready. Its geographic dimensions are not ready, and other factors. So those are my comments, and I won't be supporting our recommendations today for the facts of which I've stated.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Now, you indicated you believe this airport gateway should be taken out of the budget today.
Should be rolled.
That was not a motion, was it?
It was not a motion.
Okay.
I want to hear the rest. I wanted to put my thoughts out, and perhaps you'll get back to me before we vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the previous comments. I'm not prepared to add $40 million additional dollars to that project. I think if it goes out to bid and it comes more expensive than the $80 million budgeted, we can talk
Commissioner
about
Matlow, would you speak directly?
Sure.
Yeah, pull your mic closer to you.
Is that better?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm not prepared to add $40 million to that project budget today. I think if it comes back from bid and it's more expensive than anticipated at the $80 million allocated, we can look at either adjusting the scope or adjusting the budget at that time. I think it's just premature to add such a large amount of money to that project, particularly the most controversial project that this board discusses, which has a lot of community feedback and opposition, as well as a pretty split board on where that should go. I did on the OEV side, which fiscal year will we recover the Soma Walls grant?
It's projected that we'll recover that grant in 2027.
27. Okay. And those are all the questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Matlow. Let me ask a question in reference to Commissioner Proctor's comments and the concern that I've heard a couple of commissioners raise in reference to the airport gateway. I remember the last time we met, we were really involved about the airport gateway and whether or not to initiate a substantial amendment process. But as you know, we lost a quorum. We addressed it. We talked about concerns, but we didn't. In the final analysis, we didn't have a quorum, so we couldn't move on any of the suggestions. I understand that we have to have 2 public hearings on this budget, one August 22nd, the other one, I believe, September the 5th. If we don't approve what's before us today, if the mayor's motion and second does not pass, or even if it does pass, how can we effectively address the concerns about airport gateway? Is there a way it can be addressed and still meet our deadlines as far as our public hearing?
Madam Chair,
Please.
I will note that at the last meeting, there was a motion to initiate the substantial amendment process on the airport gateway project. That motion did fail. It was after that motion failed that there was a loss of quorum. And so we actually have the scope that pre-existed that motion. Should there be a desire to amend the scope, it would require a substantial amendment. And I will note that that does require a supermajority of commission that are city commissioners, as well as a supermajority of the directors who are county commissioners, and just kind of making sure that everyone's aware of that vote count.
Madam Chair, point of
Thank you for that
information.
clarification. Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you. I was looking at the minutes. You said that the first motion failed for this matter. I believe we had a motion on the floor before the quorum was lost, and so I was just following up. Wouldn't we have to pick up where we left off?
Thank you, Commissioner. Did you want a response?
Sure. It might be a parliamentary question. I trust you, Madam Chair, to direct it to.
Well, I don't think we have to guess. We have our minutes. That's part of our consent. I believe.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'll have to research that. I'll have to research that. Come back to you.
Can it be addressed at our business meeting, or is that what you're saying?
I don't think I'll have enough time to do it today. So it may be something that an email is sent out.
Thank you.
I have info. I'll save it for the meeting. That would probably.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. Speak in your mic. Yeah.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I'll have more questions on that, but I'll wait for the meeting since it's not really budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I was looking on page 7, and it was indicated to us that funding for the airport gateway project, it was a $6.4 million supportive implementation plan approved by the IA board at June 27, 2019 meeting. It included the segment C, which was the new roadway, and segment G, the Spring Hill Road. Here again, the commingling of the new roadway, a segment C, and the Spring Hill Road, an existing road, and the $6 million, and how it's to be allocated even, Stephen, or is the new road to get $6 million and $432,415, which leaves a $1 commitment to Spring Hill Road. Are these monies being spent to advance? See, because there's one road already existing. Concrete is on the ground, asphalt is there. And the other, a part of the asphalt is there, but we're expanding. I'm somewhat miffed because there's been movement since a June 27, 2019 meeting, and I don't understand how we're locked into that. Some parts of this body, its directors have changed, and I'm wondering how we find ourselves bound to the thoughts of June in 2019, when a lot of what is the new roadway had not been fleshed out at that point. Some of those meetings with communities had not been determined at that point. And I'm discomforted by whatever this means. I don't know what it means. I'd like to offer a substitute motion to more or less fit my own comfort level today, and it can live or die with the support or non-support of our directors. And I'd like to move staff's recommendation with the exception, Madam Chair, of the new, what staff is calling the new roadway, segment C, for the airport gateway, which includes 2 different road segments. But I'm moving staff's recommendation, save for the new roadway or the segment C called new roadway in our notes.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. I think I need some clarification on that. You are doing a substitute motion, moving the recommended option, but you said something about the new section C on the airport gateway. And what about it?
I would leave the segment C, which is the new road, the one with Stuckey Avenue,
Right.
coming all back around by the golf course and going over to Lake Bradford Road. We can leave that one on the banks. It's not ready. It's not travel ready today. The one that highlights Spring Hill Road, there is nothing spooky about that. It's ready to travel. So with the exception of I'm taking that, I don't have anything other than what I have, what's being called segment C, the new roadway.
Right.
Of the, I'm asking that we move everything else and keep that money, keep that gunpowder dry, and let's not use it today.
Excluding segment C.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Is there a second?
Second.
Before we go any
Before we-
further,
okay.
Director White has a comment regarding existing contracts related to segment.
Yeah, kind of 2 points, commissioners. The first one this motion would be addressing the funding of the segment. It would require a substantial amendment to remove the segment. So those are 2 different things. And then the other point is we would need to at least be able to fund the current contract and the current expenditures that we have, because we, based on IA board direction before, have been moving forward with segment C, and so we have an existing contract and existing commitments that we would have to be able to fund. So we would have to at least have that much money. And
Is that amount $1.2 million or is it 800,000, the existing contracts? I mean, it's not a hell of a lot of money.
Well, we've spent over $6 million altogether on the airport gateway project, all segments included. I think for segment C, we've spent over $2 million on just segment C alone.
So what are the contracts? I mean, I'm not talking about what we spent. I'm talking about that which would negate our moving because of some contracts that Artie has mentioned.
For segment C, we reached the 60% design late last year, so we're moving that segment into final design, so the contracts are related to design.
Okay, and I think that you all indicated to us, if memory serves me well, about $1 million, 1.2, somewhere between 8 and 1.2. Notes would be provided from our minutes, I'm certain. That's not an inflammatory amount of money versus 123 million additional dollars. And I'd rather put the breakdown here. And I'm not killing the project, seeking the substantial amendment thingy It's just that we're delaying it or deferring it to a year of 26 and 7. Now, if what you're telling me is that we're mandated to act because staff has recommended, then just tell me that staff runs the show. And we really don't have that option as directors here. That could be the only other interpretation. But to meet the contractual obligations for them to finish, they can finish that design. Let's pay that bill. I'd rather pay that $1 million that we owe, and we have it on the shelf. We have many studies on the shelf. But let's not commit to an amount that you're saying is $124 million right now. But Ms. Calder, you're saying we really don't know what the final bill is going to be. I don't like that, and I'm willing to pay $1 million and defer this down the road, not killing it, not taking it off, but letting the rest of this not be held hostage. And we're much more clear about the $12 million that it takes to do Spring Hill Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Just direction from our attorney. There was a motion, and we halted it. I didn't get a second.
Second, is
One
it,
over
Madam
here
Chair?
was trying to say.
Second.
Oh, it was second. Commissioner Matlow. Okay. Let's hear from Mayor Daley.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And once again, I want to thank staff for this nationally award-winning budget that is before us, consideration at this workshop. I know y'all put a lot of time and energy into it. Madam Chair, I would argue that the secondary motion that was made is out of order because it is technically a motion for a substantial amendment. Madam Chair, I'll tell you how I see it. Look, it was an effort to change the scope of the Airport Gateway project. And I applaud the efforts. I think hearts and minds were into it. However, the record reflects the motion failed. I was not here for that vote. I don't support it. Well, if it did came back up, it does not have the votes. This body has spoken. The Airport Gateway, as the scope is designed right now, is how we're moving forward. If the substitute motion, and I could be wrong, if the substitute motion is germane, because it is technically a substantial amendment that's being proposed during a budget workshop by defunding that particular segment, I would, number one, argue that if we're going to go down this path again, this is not the appropriate forum. It needs to be done at a meeting. But number two, if it is going to go through, then it needs to go through by the same vote count of what is required. Not a simple majority for a budget amendment, but by a supermajority of what it takes to pass a substantial amendment. And quite frankly, again, the votes are not there. This board has spoken. Also, I'd like to remind this board that it's not just the IA contracts and money that has been spent, but it is also the City of Tallahassee and the money that we have spent at our airport to make alignments for transportation patterns in regards to the direction that this board has previously given. And I'm looking at Wayne Tedder to make sure I got that correctly. And in fact, Madam Chair, if appropriate and if you're interested, I am sure that Assistant City Manager Tedder can tell you the millions of dollars that the city has spent with the expectation of a binding vote that this board took in regards. Also, I would be remiss if I did not bring up, and correct me if I'm wrong too, that by defunding a particular segment of this program, you're actually changing the prioritization of the projects. If we delay this by a year, and that is also, I would say, a discussion that should take place at a meeting and not necessarily during the budget workshop. And while I understand and applaud Commissioner Proctor's efforts focusing on the fiscal aspect, at the end of the day, what you are doing is changing the prioritization, and you are delaying this project and moving it back in the scope, which impacts all of the projects as well. We have had many conversations at this board over many years on both prioritization. We've had many conversations over many meetings, over major amendments. And this board has been very clear, I believe, on both the direction of prioritization and the direction on major amendments and scope of projects. I am fully prepared to support my original motion on the table. Again, reminding everyone that this is a budget workshop. This is not the end-all be-all. We will be back discussing this budget workshop in August with final approval at the end of September. I do appreciate the conversation because this is how the workshops are supposed to go, but there are major issues that are being addressed that need to be addressed formally if this is the way that this board wants to go. And again, it's the major amendment process and the prioritization process and how it relates to a budget workshop. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Caban, and then Commissioner Matlow, and then Commissioner. And you get what?
Can I get the attorney's opinion on that? I mean, he basically said that it was out of order because it seemed to be a special amendment.
Yeah, I plan to do that, but I wanted to hear from them first, and then Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Caban.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. May I address staff? May I address staff, Madam Chair?
Yeah, you can address your concern, and then we'll decide.
Well,
Go to staff.
Commissioners, our directors, this is kind of a rhetorical question, but I also would like to hear staff's opinion. Right now, I want to point something out. We are voting on $123 million. We've already spent $6 million, not including what the City of Tallahassee spent at the airport, based on a letter of intent. A letter of intent is non-binding. No bank in the history of the United States of America would give a $123 million loan or move forward with a letter of intent. I will sit here and drop this conversation if we go get a hard contract from Florida State University that is not a letter of intent. If FSU drops a letter of intent, we're holding the bag on $6 million plus whatever the City of Tallahassee invested. I think, now I'm gonna continue to say this over and over again. Last year, we had, I think it was a 10-2 vote in this same board that we did not have sufficient information by staff. And by the way, I appreciate all the effort on the budget. I'm just stating where we are in the design phase to approve a $40 million increase. Nothing has changed. We still don't have that information. Yet we're now voting on it again, and it's before us again. I'm just a little disappointed as a board. I appreciate all the effort, and I know that we have money invested. I think before we continue to invest more money, we should at least go get a hard contract from Florida State University. But we're doing all this on a letter of intent, which is non-binding. They can walk away any minute, and we're holding the bag. I mean, that's not good business. It's not being fiscally responsible. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to get clarification because I'm looking at the minutes from the last meeting, and you mentioned that the substantial amendment vote failed, which was accurate. The first one, which was made by Commissioner Caban, to remove segments A and C, 4-lane Spring Hill Road, and construct the Providence improvements. But the next motion was Commissioner Richardson's motion, which was to fully fund the airport gateway scope, and that motion also failed. So I'm a bit confused. Our standing direction is still 82 million. We had a failed motion at our last meeting not to restore the budget, and now we have a staff recommendation to restore the budget. Can you help me reconcile that?
Mr. White.
Yes, Commissioner. As we put together the budget, we have specific things that we have to do. One of those is have a budget that's balanced, which we present here. But we're also tasked with implementing projects that the IA board has approved with the scopes that have been approved. And to do that, we have a recommendation in this budget to reconcile those two things.
Sure. And just for clarity, at the last meeting, you had that same recommendation to request the additional $40 million for this project, and this board voted that down. I just want to have that on the record. And then to Mayor Daley's point, I agree that these should be discussed at meetings. There was another motion on the floor at our last meeting, which was a different substantial amendment than the one that failed, because I think we're all trying to find compromise and how we can move this forward. We didn't have a quorum. All board members weren't here. But to your point, we should all get on the record and just vote. If it's up or down, then we can move ahead. But I understand where you're coming from on maybe if everybody was here, maybe the vote would be different. You know, maybe it would be, but we should all be here for the conversation to decide that. And then we have several budget workshops ahead of us. You know, I think these conversations will continue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Proctor.
Madam Chair, I want to make clear that the mayor's comments were long but not persuasive. This is a workshop that's under your name that says a workshop on the proposed fiscal year 2025 operating budget and 5-year capital improvement plan for the Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency. So we're here to talk about money. This is what this public notice is about. That's what I am talking about. So comments of the mayor are, those are his comments. But what I'm talking about today in this budget are technical flaws in a budget that is not reconciled. Now, I didn't come to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and that's essentially what this staff is asking for, and I'm not willing to do it because we don't have a cost. We don't have definitive clarity. And from what I have read, and I can only go by what's been read, and I looked at this thing, we have down here on our staff's projection that $3 million is coming for a donation. And under the donation, there is nobody's name. I asked about what does that mean, and no one, they told me that was Florida State. Now, with that amount of money contributed, the language says that this $3 million donation was committed by Florida State University to help fund segment 3. And that's kind of misleading. Hell, I thought the money was in the bank. It said it was committed. I mean, but it didn't say it was relinquished. It didn't say it was surrendered. It didn't say that it was there, we received. It said it was committed. And I'll fall on the sword and say that I myself misread it as being monies that had been surrendered, remitted to Blueprint. So I apologize, commissioners, for not reading that well enough. However, I don't apologize for my desire to not. And the technical flaw with this, Mr. Mayor, is I'm not willing to sign on such a huge and staggering project, which Florida State is nowhere to be found. The last 2 meetings, they didn't send a living soul here. Their practice, their habit, when they want something, they show up, they're loud, they're in your face, you will know. We can't get a commitment on whether we're going to get the $3 million. That's not clear. And we're talking about Florida State from June 2019. If we're talking about June 2019, the Florida State that existed, the powers that be, that's not the same element. We need to re-up and get something renewed, a new affirmation, a reaffirmation of where they're coming from. There's silence, there's ambiguity. This is totally, as Commissioner Caban has said, some letter of intent. This right here from 2019, I'm not impressed with. We're on the hook for $3 million that Florida State committed to give to a neighborhood so as to appease their dissatisfaction with their neighborhood being torn up. And they asked for things which Commissioner Williams-Cox said they deserve, and I agree. But they have a city government also that could provide, I imagine, the same things for $3 million. But Florida State said, we'll take care of that if it's okay with you, community. So, Mr. Mayor, good directors, I say to you that at this budget workshop, and that's what I came to talk about, I wouldn't have read this as intently as I've tried had I thought this was just play, and staff would just tell us that we, because I can get up and leave now, if I'm just here and staff got this, and I'm duty bound to honor some staff. My mind is here because I was elected, and I'm here to think about an area that's very close to the area which I'm elected from. And so that's why the technical flaws and an NDA type of instrument is what this is. We don't have the disclosure of what we're binding ourselves to. We don't have the commitment from this new administration from Florida State of what they bind themselves to, and failure to secure that would mean that ultimately this body would have to write the checks to pay for everybody's shortcomings. That's why I've raised this and offered the substitute motion and ask your support, unless our staff says that we don't have the power. They do. We don't have that power. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. I'm going to ask if Mr. White can respond to that, and then I'd like to ask for clarification to our attorney.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, the proposed budget is the continuation of the implementation of many projects, but specifically regarding the airport gateway. If anyone wants to know whether FSU is committing to the funding beyond the letter of intent, the continuation of this project, some of the very immediate next steps are to take it from a letter of intent to a JPA. It requires us to move forward with the project to get there. And we don't get the $3 million until construction starts. So if we don't move forward with the project, we can't, one, no, because we won't have the JPA, or two, we can't get the $3 million. They've committed the $3 million. We just haven't received $3 million because that's contingent upon construction starting. If you want to know what the cost of the project is, we have to continue the project. The segments have to be designed. We have to understand the permitting requirements, and then it would have to go to bid to get the cost of the project. So, you know, the things that are being asked for around this table are what comes next. And this budget moves us to those next steps.
Thank you. Let me ask a question, and then Commissioner Caban, I'll come to you. You all know we have our regular meetings starting at 3, so we're going to try to wrap this up. Madam Attorney, I wanted to ask you, there's been some discussion about whether or not taking this segment pursuant to Commissioner Proctor's motion off of this project, whether or not that's elevated to requiring a substantial amendment process. And the motion wasn't fashioned in that way. So to be procedurally correct, should it be fashioned in that way?
Madam Chair, I can address that. The mayor raised some very good points which are supported legally by our bylaws. So the one point that Mayor Daley raised was that a delay in and of itself would be a substantial amendment. And he's correct regarding that. It would be a substantial change. Under the bylaws, either delaying or advancing a project would require a substantial amendment. So that's number one. Changing the prioritization also is a factor or activity that would require a substantial amendment. Trying to defund this particular project, it would not be proper to change the scope within a budget workshop within this motion, because it would bypass the substantial amendment process, which, as we know, requires the recommendation of the IMC, the TCC, the CAC, and 2 public hearings, as well as a supermajority vote of the members who are county commissioners and city commissioners of this body. One important thing I do want to address, there was discussion of an LOI and how all of this project is based on the LOI. That is not correct. The key thing to remember here is that the current project scope for the airport gateway, we arrived at this point because there was a substantial amendment to the original airport gateway project that brought us to this point. So there were 2 public hearings, maybe even more. I wasn't here at the time. There was also the supermajority vote of the then existing IA board members who voted to put the project scope where it is now. So there was a process. The project scope is not purposeful from the LOI. It does not arise from the LOI. It arrives from the actions of this IA board, which included public hearings and a supermajority vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Attorney. Let me just follow up too, and I can recall that the board voted at one point to reduce the cost of the project. I believe it was Commissioner Caban that provided the motion, and it was second from the 120 or 117 million to 82 million. And I believe it passed, but was it not effective because it wasn't triggering the substantial amendment process, so that wasn't part of the motion?
It did
I'm
not
trying to
change
figure out where
It did not change the scope.
Okay.
And I think the board struggled with this at the last meeting, which is, and staff as well, which is what do we do now that we are several months later, almost half a year later, going into a new fiscal year, trying to plan for a new fiscal year, and we still have the same scope? How do we proceed as staff with a contractor on board who is moving toward, a design, getting to 100% design? We're not at 100%, but moving in that direction. How do we proceed with the same amount of money? So we're looking for direction from the board, not necessarily in this budget workshop in terms of scope, but eventually that has to be dealt with. If it is not, then our direction is to proceed with the scope that we have. And the question is, how do we fund that? So the funding piece is before you, but not necessarily the scope. In order to change the scope, there has to be the substantial amendment process pursuant to your interlocal agreement and pursuant to the bylaws.
Thank you, Madam Attorney, for that clarification. Commissioner Caban and then Commissioner.
What is that?
A follow-up question to the attorney.
It would be my assessment that the substitute motion, the portion regarding the funding of segment C would be improper. That would be my opinion on that.
Or if he amended it to also include triggering the substantial amendment process, would it be proper?
Well, the proper place for that, because this is a budget workshop,
Right.
Would be the regular meeting and perhaps director discussion, because I don't think there's an agenda item in the regular meeting that would entail this. So it would be the director discussion portion to bring that up, discuss it, have motion, second, and if it passes, have staff initiate the substantial amendment process.
Okay. Let me ask Commissioner Proctor, would you be willing to just withdraw your motion and we address this when we have our business meeting beginning at 3?
First, let me ask a question. So everything that I've heard our staff say is that if we voted this budget down, all of us would be in trouble, and we don't have an option of saying no to this budget. That's what I heard. So we have to, because even though we have a design, it's only 60% design, yet we have a contractor who we've paid, and he's ready to go, or she's ready to go, whoever it is, but they're ready to go. So we're behind 6 months to people that we've promised and committed. And whether we have FSU's money or their commitment updated, or whether we have this new administration FSU's commitment, we're ready to go because we have lined up people who we want to pay. So my motion is out of order at a budget workshop to say there are technical flaws of which we don't have finite definition of how much money. We have seen again and again, if that doesn't work over and over, we've seen from 82 million to 124 million. This body has voted for 82 million, but we can't hold it. Then the staff comes here today and said, we're not even sure on that. That's what they've said to us. I'm only listening to words offered, but I'm withdrawing my motion because I recognize, though I'm going to vote against this budget and the mayor's motion, I recognize that we really can't because we would be substantially out of compliance. So we have no option. There's nothing really here to vote on.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor, for withdrawing the motion. Let's hear from Commissioner Williams-Cox and then Commissioner Welch. And I'm trying to get to commissioners that we haven't heard from, and we do have a 3 o'clock business meeting.
And Madam Chair, thank you. And that was my reason for asking, because I have not spoken on this. I'm ready to call the question, so we can move.
Okay, don't
But yeah,
call it yet.
Right, I'm saying I'm ready. I heard you say there's somebody else, but
Point of order, I have not
Let
withdrawn
me
my
hear from
second.
Commissioner Welch, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you all hear me? I apologize for my tardiness. Listen, I think that what the conflict we're having is because we have put our staff in this position of conflict. This is a budget workshop. They're trying to move a budget for these big projects that we've directed them to move. And they're all tangled up because we have tangled them up. If we want to initiate a substantial amendment process for the airport gateway, that should be done at the business meeting at 3 o'clock. You can do that. It can be done in director time. We can vote on it. It can pass or fail. But in this context, I want to commend the staff for doing the best you can in this environment where we're trying to mess it up from technical reasons. It's a difficult situation. These are big $100 million projects that are built out over a decade, and we're trying to move the ball down the field. There's 2 more budget workshops where I'm sure we'll have these same convoluted conversations. I just want to say thank you for all the work you've put in, and I intend to vote, obviously, for the staff recommendation to move the ball on down the field. And then we want to talk about the projects. We can definitely do that in the 3 o'clock meeting at director time, which is where we were at before, if you recall, when we lost a quorum. So that would be my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Madam Chair, can I finish?
I'm sorry.
I would hope, Commissioner Proctor, that we could keep a quorum. And now, thank you. You can call the question.
Thank you, Commissioner Welch. Commissioner Caban, last comment, and then I'm going to call for the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to address Madam Attorney, if that's okay with you, based on 2 points she said a minute ago. Madam Attorney, you made the comment that the LOI would not change the project. If FSU walked on their LOI, what would happen with segment C?
Did you direct that question to staff?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to speculate and respond to that. We have been, when I say we, I'm talking myself and other staff members, have been working with FSU over the past year. First of all, we extended the LOI. Let me first be clear on that. They have been willing and engaged in talking to us over the past year to get to the point where we have a complete and ready to execute joint project agreement that they can take to their board of trustees once the IA board is comfortable with the project, the information and provisions in that JPA. So it's not as though FSU has been silent. We have been working with them. So we fully anticipate that they will honor the commitments that they made in the LOI.
But your statement was if they walked on the LOI, that it wouldn't change the project. We don't own that land. They own the land. So if they don't donate the land, what happens to segment C?
Well, the state owns the land, not FSU. FSU
It's a land lease. It's a land lease.
FSU is the leasee. We would certainly bring that to the board if that does come to pass, but at this point, I'm not going to speculate. At this point in time, FSU is working with us, moving toward a JPA, finalizing an agreement.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is, in last fall, we were able in a budget workshop to set the budget, to keep the budget at $82 million when the staff recommendation was to go up to 123. That didn't require a substantial amendment. That required a simple majority. So why is that different in this budget workshop?
Well, if we're talking about the last amendment, I think that's different. This was specifically to remove funding for segment C, which under the bylaws would be tantamount to changing the scope of it. I don't think there was
That's not
any
what he said,
reference.
though.
If I could finish answering your question, there was no reference, I believe, and I'll have to look back, to a specific segment, in that it was just overall moving from one number to another, which this board can certainly do. But when you change the scope in terms of chopping out one particular segment or portion of it, then that will trigger the substantial amendment process.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, directors, I'm prepared to vote on this. Either way it goes, I'm prepared either way. I've said my piece. I just want to point something out. The rules are constantly changing in this board. What happened last fall is different now. And anytime that there is something in this board that doesn't go with staff recommendation, the rules change and we become hand-tied. And I'm not saying it's y'all's fault, but it's becoming frustrating because last fall we had a budget workshop and this was no problem. Now all of a sudden in this budget workshop, it's not okay. And there's just no consistency, and we're hand-tied as electeds to do what we need to do, what we want to do. And I'm prepared to vote on it, and I'm willing to drop the conversation after this. But I will say it is very, very frustrating. People can go back and watch the tape from last fall, and the rules have changed. And Commissioner Proctor is just asking to change the budget on a segment. Okay, this is a budget workshop, so we are setting the budget, and now we're saying we can't set the budget. It's just inconsistent. It's frustrating, and it doesn't work in the benefit of the people. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Caban. We haven't heard from Commissioner Maddox. Okay, I'll allow you briefly. Yes, sir. Okay. All right, we're going to call the vote. Commissioner Proctor withdrew his substitute, so we're going to vote on the original motion from the mayor, which is option 1. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Oh, but we might need getting ready to say that. We might need a roll call vote. Madam Clerk.
Mayor Daley,
Aye.
Commissioner Matlow,
Nay.
Commissioner Porter,
Nay.
Commissioner Williams-Cox,
Aye.
Commissioner Caban, Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Commissioner Maddox, Commissioner Minor,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Keefe,
No.
Commissioner Proctor, and Commissioner Welch.
We'll wait for the result.
Passes.
Does pass.
Okay. So option 1 does pass. Mr. White, is there anything further?
Not until your 3 o'clock meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you, commissioners. We appreciate your comments. We certainly appreciate staff. You all make us look really good with all the accolades, local, state, and national. And we adjourn until 3 o'clock.